He was surviving, actually even thriving, in this wild environment. But despite his growing competence, a deep and persistent ache of loneliness settled in his heart. In the quiet moments, as he sat by his small, smoky fire in the evening, the silence would become deafening. He missed the sound of his mother's voice, the low rumble of his father's laugh, the simple comfort of being in his own bed. The solitude was a constant companion, a shadow that followed him even on the sunniest days. Sometimes he would talk to himself, just to hear a human voice, his words swallowed by the immense emptiness of the wilderness around him. He would often trace the outline of his home in the dirt with a stick, recreating the small cottage, the goat pen, and the path leading down to the village. He would close his eyes and try to summon the faces of his parents, terrified that their features might start to fade from his memory. These memories were both a comfort and a torment. They were a reminder of everything he had lost, but they were also a beacon of hope. The thought of seeing his family again, of returning to the life he had known, was the fuel that kept him going, the reason he fought to survive each and every day. One afternoon, as Leo was foraging near the stream, he heard a familiar sound, a weak, whimpering bark. His heart leaped. He scrambled over the rocks, his eyes darting around, and then he saw him. Curled up at the base of a pine tree, looking thin and exhausted, was Buster. The dog's fur was matted with burrs, and one of his paws was bleeding. But when he saw Leo, his tail gave a faint, hopeful thump against the ground. Relief washed over Leo so powerfully that his knees felt weak. He rushed forward and threw his arms around the dog's neck, burying his face in his familiar scruffy fur. The reunion changed everything. The crushing weight of loneliness began to lift. Leo was no longer just a solitary survivor. He was part of a team. He carefully cleaned and bandaged Buster's injured paw with soft leaves and a strip of cloth torn from his own shirt. He shared the small piece of roasted rabbit he had managed to catch, and the dog ate gratefully, his eyes never leaving Leo's face. That night, curled up together in the lean-to, the warmth of Buster's body against his was more comforting than any fire. The wilderness no longer felt so empty. Buster's presence was more than just companionship. It was a partnership. The dog's keen senses became an extension of Leo's own. Buster could hear things long before Leo could, his ears perking up at the slightest sound, alerting them to both danger and opportunity. He was a natural hunter, helping Leo track small animals and corner them. They worked together seamlessly, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Leo would find the resources and Buster would stand guard, a loyal sentinel watching over their small, wild home. Their bond, already strong, deepened into something unbreakable, forged in the crucible of survival. They were two lost souls who had found each other again in the vastness of the wild. They shared everything, their meager food, the warmth of their shelter, and the silent burden of their journey. When fear crept in during the dark nights, Leo would whisper his worries to Buster, and the dog would respond with a reassuring lick to his hand. They were a family of two, relying on each other for everything, their shared existence a testament to the power of loyalty and friendship. Even with Buster by his side, the nights were long and often filled with a profound sadness. As Leo lay beside the glowing embers of his fire, with the dog's steady breathing a comforting rhythm beside him, his mind would drift back to the life he had lost. He would dream not of monsters or dangers in the forest, but of simple, ordinary things that he now missed with an intensity that made his chest ache. He dreamed of the heavy wooden door of his cottage, the taste of his mother's warm bread, and the feeling of her hand stroking his hair. These dreams were vivid and felt so real that waking up was a painful jolt back to his harsh reality. He would wake with the phantom taste of soup on his tongue or the echo of his father's voice in his ears, only to open his eyes to the rough bark ceiling of his lean-to and the endless green of the forest. The disappointment was a fresh wave of grief each morning. He would look at his reflection in a still pool of water and see a stranger looking back, a boy with wild hair, sun-darkened skin, and eyes that looked older than his years. The changing seasons marked the passing of time. He watched the leaves turn from green to brilliant shades of gold and red, and then fall, leaving the trees bare and skeletal. The air grew colder and the nights longer. The thought of facing a harsh mountain winter alone filled him with a new kind of dread. The sadness was a constant undercurrent to his daily struggle for survival. It was in the mournful cry of a loon across a lake, in the grey light of an overcast day, and in the deep silence of the snow-dusted forest. Yet these dreams of home were also his salvation. They were a constant reminder of what he was fighting for. When his spirit faltered and the will to go on grew weak, he would force himself to remember the warmth of his family's love. He would picture their faces, imagine their reunion, and hold on to that image with all his might. The sadness and the hope were two sides of the same coin. The pain of his loss was the measure of his love for what he had, and that love was the source of his incredible strength to endure. As the weather turned colder, Leo noticed a change in Buster. The dog, who had always been so full of energy, began to slow down. His steps became laboured, and the paw that had been injured never fully healed, causing him to limp. He spent more and more time sleeping by the fire, his breathing shallow. Leo did everything he could for his friend. He gave Buster the best pieces of whatever food he managed to find and made his bed inside the shelter as soft as possible with dry leaves and moss. He would spend hours just sitting with him, stroking his fur and whispering words of encouragement. The decline was slow but steady. There were days when Buster seemed to rally, his tail giving a weak wag, but they became fewer and farther between. Leo knew, with a heavy heart, that his friend was old and that their time together was coming to an end. The thought was unbearable. Buster was his only companion, his partner in this lonely existence. Losing him felt like losing the last piece of his old life, the last link to the boy he used to be. The wilderness, which had become a place of survival, threatened to become a place of unbearable grief once more. One evening, as a pale moon rose over the silent, snow-dusted trees, Buster's breathing became very faint. Leo lay down beside him, pulling the dog close and wrapping his arms around his frail body, trying to share his own warmth. He talked to him softly, thanking him for his loyalty, for finding him, for saving him from the crushing loneliness. He told him what a good dog he was, the best friend a boy could ever have. Buster looked up at him, his eyes full of a deep, trusting affection, and gave one last soft lick to Leo's hand before closing his eyes for the final time. The grief that washed over Leo was immense, a tidal wave of sorrow that left him empty and hollow. He sat with Buster's still body all through the cold night, the silence of the forest pressing in on him. The next morning, with tears streaming down his face, he dug a grave in the hard, cold earth beneath the shelter of the cliff. He wrapped his friend in the softest leaves he could find and laid him gently to rest. He marked the spot with a pile of smooth river stones. He was truly alone now, but he was not the same frightened boy who had hidden in the hollow tree. Buster's friendship had given him a strength that even death could not take away. In the days following Buster's death, a heavy stillness settled over Leo. The daily routines of survival felt hollow and meaningless without his friend. Yet, in his profound grief, something shifted. One night he had a dream unlike any other. He dreamt he was walking through a dense, foggy forest, lost and afraid. Then he saw a light in the distance, a warm, flickering glow. As he walked towards it, he saw Buster, young and healthy again, standing at the edge of the light. The dog barked once, a clear, happy sound, and then turned and trotted down a path Leo hadn't seen before, looking back as if to say, "Follow me." When Leo woke, the dream was crystal clear in his mind. It wasn't a dream of sadness or longing. It felt like a message, a guide. He looked out from his shelter and saw the landscape with new eyes. He noticed a ridge in the distance, one he hadn't explored before that seemed to match the one from his dream. A new sense of purpose ignited within him. He was done surviving. It was time to go home. He packed a small bundle of dried food, took one last look at the stone pile that marked Buster's grave, and whispered, "Thank you, my friend." Then he started walking. He followed the ridge, just as he had in his dream. The journey was long and arduous. He crossed frozen streams and navigated treacherous rocky terrain. His body was weary, but his spirit was resolute. The memory of Buster and the guiding light of his dream spurred him on. Whenever doubt crept in, he would close his eyes and picture Buster's happy bark, and it would give him the strength to take another step. He was no longer just wandering. He was following a path, a final trail that felt destined and true. He was walking towards the light. After several days of relentless walking, he crested a high hill and stopped, his breath catching in his throat. Below him, nestled in the familiar valley, was a sight he thought he might never see again. The thin curls of smoke rising from the chimneys of his village. Tears welled in his eyes, blurring the beautiful scene. It was real. He wasn't dreaming. He began to run, stumbling and falling, but always getting back up, his heart pounding with a wild, joyous rhythm. He was coming home, a boy who had walked into the wilderness and was now returning a man, forever changed by his long journey and the unforgettable friend he had lost along the way.